Right, we're so glad you could stay with us. In the last 1 month, there's been an upsurge in the attacks carried out by Boko Haram in the northeast of the country. The militants ambushed a military convoy and attacked a military base within 24 hours in Borno State.
Yes, 17 soldiers were killed in another military base last week. Villagers were not also spared the horror. The militants burned down houses and killed many others. In nearby Yobe State, they ambushed troops of the Nigerian army who engaged in a fierce battle with them, killing scores of the terrorists. Now, when will this war end? Is a big question.
It's a big question, and how exactly can even the war itself end? What strategies, do our military operators have really to actually quell this insurgency in the northeast? Well, joining us in the studio is a security expert, a friend of the house, a regular face on the show, Colonel Hassan Stanlabo, retired. Thank you so much for joining us. Good morning.
Thank you.
Good morning. Nice to see you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Okay, so now it looks like there's a deliberate attempt to target security operators. This seems to be another dimension, a more deadly, dangerous dimension to the insurgency in the northeast.
Yeah, you are very correct. I would say that, and it's a very dangerous dimension, like you said. And I'm even looking beyond that.
Okay.
And I only want to believe that those handling the operational planning would also think in my direction. And what am I really thinking about? I foresee these guys encroaching into areas they have never encroached into, and areas where they can make big harvests in terms of human casualty. I'm looking at the rail sector.
Wow.
I'm looking at our aviation sector. I'm looking at our public water supply areas. If our public water can be poisoned, we're in trouble. Well, thank God, most of us now rely on our private boreholes. We're all the same. We know public water still flow to some areas. Okay? I'm looking at the leisure area, or leisure sector, where we now have our 5- and 7-star hotels, 5-star restaurants, that is all these Chinese restaurants and so on. I'm looking at shopping malls. All these are areas they have not gone into yet. So I want to believe that, look, we must be upping our games. We must be thinking ahead of these guys at all times. We can't afford to remain responsive in any way. So if we are thinking along this line, what measures are we putting in place? What are the relevant supervisory authorities that should be moving around to make sure all these soft targets are well protected, talking with their managements and so on? These are the issues.
All right. Now, let's even come back to some salient questions Nigerians are asking. When we often hear that funds are required, we just heard of some military or soldiers in the northeast who were protesting one way or the other, deployment and lack of funds, lack of regular payments and whatever it is. But we often hear of so much monies from the NNPC, so much monies going into this and going into that. It is quite easier for monies to be allocated for all of this. But when it comes to the northeast, these security challenges, there seem to be difficulty in coughing out the monies for all of this.
Mike, it's really unfortunate. You see, since after 9/11, nearly every Western country has upped its budgetary allocation to defense
and security
sector and security sector. I mean it, especially when it comes to the intelligence area. Most of them have tripled, let me say, their investment in that area. The defense and security sector has undergone some rejig or overhaul in nearly all the Western countries. Okay? But here we are yet to see some of these things happening. And even when they're happening, they are so slow, and citizens don't really show enough understanding when some of these things are hiked up, maybe for such reasons as corruption and so on, of course, and so on. The point I'm trying to make is that we are yet to really catch up with the realities on ground. We must really understand the situation, get our best hands in positions and serious-minded individuals to handle some of these things. Not people who are just after their own aggrandizement or whatever.
The preemptive measures that you just talked about, within whose purview would it be really? I mean, you have the National Security Advisor, you have the Minister of Defense, you have, all of those. Should we begin to look at the Ministry for Homeland Affairs, for example, like the U.S. has in the wake of the September 11 attacks in 2001?
Yes, the Ministry of Homeland Affairs, actually.
Homeland Security.
Homeland Security,
yes.
Sorry, was a product of the 9/11 development or events and so on. Well, if we have to think in that direction, I think there's nothing wrong in we thinking in that direction, so that it allows us the opportunity to just capture those relevant areas we want to bring in and ensure that there is proper protection. Because like we talked in now, I don't think we have any serious transport security strategy on ground. Transport generally, that is road, rail, aviation, waterways. Do we have one? We don't. We've got a lot of job to do.
Beyond those scanners at the airport, for example, and all of that?
Yes, my dear, we've got a lot to do. And what stops us also, I say this because of the in-depth knowledge I know about what I want to say now. The availability of Nigerians who are well knowledgeable in some of these things abroad. I've got thousands of my friends in the UK who are itching to do things for Nigeria. But even when some of them visit home and try to, sell their expertise like I do, they are often rebuffed by individuals who feel, you want to take my job. Just the way some of us talk here, and people feel don't mind them, they are looking for
attention or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you are just merely drawing public attention to issues of national interest and concern, and for us to be serious and protect ourselves.
All right, now, before we go on the break, let me ask this. It's about 10 years since we've been fighting Boko Haram in the northeast. And up until now, we're still talking about the same thing, where Boko Haram, even though the military will say they don't have, they've not captured any region or any territory is not under Boko Haram. But up till now, we know that Sambisa Forest, no one can go to that area as it is. At this point, should we talk about, is it an issue of incompetence now, or inability of the Nigerian military to handle this issue, or is just sheer politics, or someone somewhere is benefiting from the status quo? How should we interpret this?
I don't know whether to say mixed grill of all.
It's looking like it.
I don't know whether to say mixed grill of all. But if there's anything I want to exonerate the Nigerian military from, is that of lack of competence. The competence is there. Certain other extraneous
factors like
could
what?
be affecting. Ngozi, there she goes.
Yeah.
No, because we need to understand these things. We need to understand these things. Yeah.
What are those extraneous factors?
The other day I talked about manpower issues.
Yeah.
Okay. And manpower issues will lead to, for instance, delayed what we call rotation in the field. Rotation, that is changing of the men, bringing fresh hands, to the forward lines and take those who are already fatigued out. It is very important in every operation, and I know in this operation we're having serious problems with that. Why are we having serious problems? Because of the manpower issue. And this manpower issue has always been there. Whenever I talk about this issue of rotation, I speak from a position of experience. I was deployed in the Bakassi for 3 years. Barely 3 weeks after my wedding, my unit relocated to the Bakassi, where I stayed for 3 years before placing my eyes again on a woman you wedded.
Wow.
Besides that aspect, after 3 years, my brother, there is what I'll call engine fatigue. You need to be rotated as a soldier.
And that's part of the reason why these angry soldiers acted in Maiduguri.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, we're talking about the security issues in the northeast of Nigeria. It seems like Boko Haram is trying to up their game again against the military, against formation there. We have in the studio Colonel Hassan Stanlabo, retired, doing justice. He's a security consultant, and we've been talking about this. Now, let's dwell on the issue of ambush.
Yeah.
When there is an ambush, a lot of people say that ambushes don't just happen. There can be a one-off coincidence, but when there's an ambush, it means there's an information that these people are going to be here at this time and with whatever capacity as the case may be. It brings us to the issue of fifth columnists here, what people have always been talking about. How challenging is the issue of the fifth columnist within the rank and file, or within the army itself?
It may exist, it may not exist.
Okay.
But when you have a group of disgruntled elements on ground as part of your men, it is most likely it would exist. But it is important we disabuse our mind of one thing.
Yeah.
It is not that every time you have these ambush incidents that it means somebody must have leaked out on zero. No.
Okay.
The enemy, just the way you two do to the enemy force.
The preempting.
Yes, they preempt you, they study your pattern, and so on. They look at your supply routes. And if you are the type who, out of laziness, you have established only one supply route, where all your logistics and everything...
Where you have a routine.
Thank you. They capitalize on such. They don't mind laying in the waiting for the next 2 weeks. And of course, they have reports, individuals who will be reporting, until when you get close to where they are expected to strike. And of course, they always strike at a location where it is more difficult for you to extricate yourself.
So which means there has to be a lot of creativity in the battlefront on the part of the soldiers. But when Boko Haram has the effrontery to go inside a military base to attack soldiers,
and they succeed.
And they succeed. And they take away weapons, they take away vehicles before fleeing.
What does that tell, really?
And you recall, I'm reminded of, was it 2 or 3 weeks ago, not too long ago, that you had security chiefs visit the president, and they actually demanded for more equipment and all of that. Are we to deduce that there's a possibility that our soldiers are not even well equipped, in spite of the fact that this government has said over and over again that it will not hold anything back in ensuring that it provides what the soldiers need to push back Boko Haram?
You can never have enough of all you need in a battlefront.
Okay.
That is one thing we should all understand. You can never fund a fighting body enough. If you purchase, for instance, helicopters, and what if the enemy has got fighters, jet fighters? You begin to look up to also obtaining jet fighters. By the time you are getting jet fighters, the enemy is purchasing submarines in the waterway. You begin to now say, okay, we also need submarines. How much is it going for? So billions. If you don't have an understanding civil populace, they shout, ah, when health is suffering. So you can never fund a fighting. That's why you just pray never to go to war as a country. Because nearly all your resources will be diverted in that direction. And woe betide you, you are a poor country. Then even schooling for your children might be stopped. Why? Because you need to push off the enemy off your land.
All right. As we round off, Nigerians are still asking when Boko Haram can be a thing of the past, as it is, especially when they still have some level of, or seemingly, perceptively, capacity to even attack the military. What should change now for the game to change?
We should re-strategize as much as we can. We should up our game in every aspect. At the national or federal level, we should be thinking of a rejig of our security agencies, overhauling our defense and national defense architecture. Okay? Seeing if we can even triple our expenses in intelligence. Because intelligence is the backbone of every asymmetric warfare. You need it. Without intelligence, you're in trouble. It therefore means that we begin to see how we can begin to integrate technology into our surveillance equipment as much as possible. As much as possible. There are surveillance equipment and there are surveillance equipment. If you are going for the very best, you pay the very best of money. It depends on what you want. They are all there in the market.
But then again, I wonder how sustainable is that? I mean, if we have to rely solely 100% on, foreign input when it comes to military hardware and all of that, maybe it's time for us...
Because we are not an industrial nation.
But at the time, Nigeria was producing some of those elements.
We did not capitalize on the gains of the Nigerian Civil War. I keep saying it.
Yeah.
Our Biafran brothers had these artillery pieces. Forget however archaic they may be.
Yeah.
If we had, leverage on that. Countries like Pakistan, that was when they took off. Today, Pakistan is one of the greatest producers of artillery pieces.
We have imported
By now, we could have been at that level. We said the war was over, one Nigeria, and we refused to go in and look for those guys who did this wonders.
How did they build the Obunigwes
and bring them over? Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
That was the aspect we neglected. Those would have been the gains of the Nigerian Civil War.
All right, we have to leave you here now. Colonel Hassan Stanlabo, security consultant, thank you so much for talking to us this morning.
I appreciate this.
We look forward to greater days ahead for Nigeria.